Okay, so let's start the video. Hello, everyone. Hi there.
Great start. Great start.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this video. This video is about answering questions about Mongolia, and we're gonna do a video with Amalia.
AKA the Wild Amalia, because people deserve a warning. And this is Puba from Daily Insight Lab. So we're going to be doing this as kind of a two-part thing for each of our channels and some very different perspectives. Because, of course, I'm American. I lived in Mongolia, but I'm American.
Yes, and I'm Mongolian. And Amalia lived for 3 years in Mongolia. So we are sort of experts.
You might be.
Sometimes I don't know. Okay, so the way this video is gonna go is like the questions are gonna be from Google, and we typed "is Mongolia," and then we have all these questions. So let's start.
The most commonly Googled questions about Mongolia.
Yes.
Let's go.
Okay, the first one is Mongolia safe?
So I think this is a question that comes up a lot for foreigners. So I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, Mongolia is pretty safe. Um, Honestly, the biggest crime you have to look out for here is pickpocketing. And even that is a lot less common these days now that so much things are done like digitally. So as long as you keep your phone safe, you're pretty safe. The chance of there being a violent crime that's like randomly committed against you is pretty low. There still is violent crime in Mongolia. We know this, but it's usually fairly targeted, or that's my experience. And it doesn't usually impact foreign tourists. But what about safety for Mongolians?
I agree with you as well. I feel pretty safe, but maybe because of my upbringing, like my mom is a very anxious person, so she like thinks about all the worst case scenarios and warns us. But nothing bad happened to me, actually.
I think that's just a mom thing.
Yeah. So I would say Mongolia is pretty safe. It's like every other country.
Except there's one thing about Mongolia that's very unsafe.
The manhole cover.
The manhole covers. Do not step on Mongolian manhole covers. They are not all secured. They genuinely might flip and you might actually fall down a manhole.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh. It's actually terrible. Laughing is my coping mechanism.
Yeah. I also laugh at the wrongest places.
Yeah, it's how you survive.
Okay. So next one is Mongolia Central Asia?
Ooh.
I always thought like it was in Central Asia, but apparently not.
This is a big question because geographically speaking, if we're looking at the whole east-west thing, it's directly north of China, which is East Asia. It's next to Korea, which is East Asia. And it's south of Russia, which people think is Europe. Yeah. So, like, when we say Central Asia, we think of like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. I've heard it referred to in academia as Inner Asia. But is Mongolia Central Asia?
No.
Sort of. No, maybe.
Yeah, there's no definite answer, kind of.
I don't think so.
But like in a formal way, I think it's East Asia, right?
Yeah, but it's so culturally, it's much closer to a lot of Central Asia.
Kazakhstan. Yeah.
But geographically, it's way further east. So I don't know.
I also don't know.
I use the term Inner Asia on my thesis, though. So if you use the term Inner Asia, you can cite me in your bibliography.
Okay. The third question.
Question number 3.
Is Mongolia a third world country? Yes. Third world is actually a term that came about in the Cold War or something.
It was either Cold War or World War II. I think you might be right that it's Cold War. I don't really remember.
Something related to war. And it's not very a nice thing to say or something. Third world.
No, I know it had to do with like, I always forget whether it was Cold War or World War II, but it had to do with which country you were allied with,
Mm-hmm.
but it's come to mean whether you're considered like developed or wealthy, or whether you're not considered developed or
Yeah.
wealthy now.
It's developing country. So you could say it's third world country. You could say, I think.
I'd agree that it's a developing country for sure.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the term third world
Is a
is
bit,
it's a bit messy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is Mongolia Country. Yes.
Yes, but I
But
think part of the reason people get really confused
mm-hmm.
is there's Mongolia, the country, which we are currently in, and then there's sort of
Oh
the
yeah, Inner
greater
Mongolia.
Mongolia. So there's Inner Mongolia, which is part of China, and then there's places like Buryatia, Tuva, and Kalmykia, which are Mongolian, but they're in Russia. So, like,
People get confused.
I think it's easy to get confused because there's Mongolia, the nation state, the country with the flag that we are currently in. And then there's like the Mongolian ethnic, cultural, and linguistic area.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Yeah.
Mongolia is definitely a country.
Yeah. Also, I understand why this is a question
Yeah.
because of Inner Mongolia and
Yeah.
yeah.
But I have the visa to prove that Mongolia is actually a country.
Yes. Is Mongolia communist? We were a communist until 1992, but not right now. We are a democratic country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a pretty easy question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is Mongolia part of China?
I think that goes back to the earlier
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Inner Mongolia, yes.
Yes.
This Mongolia, no. Russian Mongolia, also no.
Yes. Is Mongolia created chess? No. Is Mongolia?
No. But we were talking about this a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Um, as far as either of us could figure out from history, chess was invented probably in India, maybe Persia, but chess is hugely popular here.
Yeah.
And not just here, but also like that greater Mongolian cultural sphere, like in Kalmykia
Mm-hmm.
in Russia, chess is like the game.
Yeah.
It's
The most
huge,
popular
the most
board
popular game.
Yeah.
And it's huge here too.
Yeah.
Like I was just at the State Department store, which fun fact, it is the State Department store, not the State Department store. I thought the United States State Department had a store here for about 6 months, and I was really confused. And they had so many chess sets for sale, like all these cool Mongolian chess sets. So chess is hugely popular here, and it probably came here really early,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't, as far as we know, it was not invented
Yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is Mongolia poor country? So there's a significant amount of poverty and the wealth distribution is not very even. So according to the UN, I think it was ranked as the lower middle income country. So yeah, it's not the poorest, but it's kind of poor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually we have a lot of like raw minerals. It's just not evenly distributed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another thing is like when you have a large portion of the population that's nomadic,
Mm-hmm.
because what percentage of the population currently? Like,
Maybe like 30-40%.
yeah, so it's still a very significant population. A lot of their wealth is not going to be measured in cash.
Yeah.
A lot of their wealth is going to be things like livestock.
Yeah.
And so if a person has very little cash, but they have a house and lots of food to eat and comfortable clothing to wear, are they more poor than someone who lives, for example, in the Gare district, who has more cash, but is
Nothing
struggling,
else.
it
Yeah.
has nothing else? So like, this just brings up the bigger question of how do we judge wealth versus poverty, which is way too big of a question for this video. But I think it's an important question to ask. If someone's cash poor but has everything else that they need, are they richer or poorer than someone who has cash but doesn't have enough of it to buy new clothing for their kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, like nomadic people's
This is what I
like
think
wealth.
about.
Yeah. But recently there was like a protest against the politician. Yeah.
Yeah.
This clearly shows like how different um, our politicians are compared to like normal people.
Yeah, wasn't it something like his son bought their girlfriend like a ridiculously
20
ex-
million to Greek bag and
yeah,
all the other stuff.
like some kind of like super brand name bag when
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who are, just struggling to get by.
Yeah. I think it was like a Hermes bag or something.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, but we did a good job, I think, in terms of the protest.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was watching, like my friends were sending me links. It was very organized, very peaceful.
Yeah.
I'm not Mongolian, so I can't judge it too much, but as an outsider, I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Okay, the last question is Mongolia rich or poor? I want to say rich, but as we mentioned earlier, a lot of people are poor, so I can't say we are rich, but I feel like we have a lot of resources that we can
Yeah.
use. Just we are not using it like smartly, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean the politicians, the people with a lot of power don't have heart, you know, for Mongolia. So
It's
it's a
politicians in so many countries.
yeah, all the countries almost,
Yeah,
right?
probably close to it, if not all of them.
Like some of them are doing pretty compared to like us
Yeah, but not a
there,
lot.
but most of the like problems are this like politicians doing bad things.
I think Mongolia also has so many untapped resources. Like we talk about resources like coal is a big one here and natural resources like that. But these days so many things we're trying to use green power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mongolia is, I believe, the least densely populated country on the planet, if not close
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
How cool would it be? I'm like, again, I am not a professional at this, so I don't know, but like harnessing some of that space for solar power
yeah,
or wind
yeah,
power. I mean, anyone who's been out in the Mongolian countryside during a windstorm, harnessing some of that for wind power. So I think there's a lot of untapped resources in Mongolia too. I'm always saying Hollywood needs to look into Mongolia for movies
mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
there's so many cool locations here.
yeah.
But I'd agree. I'd say Mongolia is rich, but that wealth isn't necessarily appreciated or reaching everyone.
Mm-hmm. Like these projects that we want like to reach the untapped potentials need like startup money, right?
Yeah.
Startup like investment. And there's like a conspiracy theory that me and my boyfriend talk about, like Russia, mostly maybe Russia is kind of have control, like secret. This is conspiracy theory. I don't
I
have
love a good
any
conspiracy theory.
I don't have any proof about this, but just like they try to keep us this way and like block the investments and things like that.
Wow.
We are suspecting about Russians more than Chinese.
I definitely don't know enough about this to say to it.
This is a conspiracy theory, though.
my only
I don't believe in it 100%.
my only conspiracy theory is that pandas are not real. That's my only one.
Yeah, they are pretty weird.
They're so
Like the
strange.
color is so striking, right?
They just look like a person in a panda suit. Do you have any other questions for that is Mongolia? Or are those
This
the
is finished.
those are the top 10
Yes,
questions?
that's
I
all.
think it was 10.
Yes, I think so.
Wow.
We finished. The part 1 is finished.
And part 2 will be over on my channel, The Wild Amalia.
The Wild Amalia.
And we are going to be looking at some more questions with slightly different phrasing to see what happens.
Yes. See you there.
See you there.
Bye.
Bye. I sit weird because chairs are uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
There are two types of people in the world.
I mean, I have a skirt, so I have to sit.
You have limitations. We could throw a shawl over your legs.
Yeah,
this is all being recorded, by the way.
Yeah, maybe I can get a shawl. Can you?
Would you like a shawl?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. By the way, this is all being recorded and will be released as a blooper reel later.
Okay. Thank
Cover,
you so much.
cover yourself up, you modest hussy.